Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Ryan Matthews never imagined a regular Thursday in October would be the day his whole life fell apart. At 38, he was a man who had built something solid, a respected civil engineer, a devoted father to two beautiful little girls, and a husband to a woman he truly believed would be his partner for life. The house in Charlotte, North Carolina, was the symbol of everything he'd worked so hard to create: the well-kept garden, the porch where the twins played, the smell of coffee in the morning while Claire hummed gospel songs as she made breakfast. Everything seemed perfect. Maybe too perfect. Claire was a music teacher at a private school with an angelic voice that charmed everyone. She was dedicated, affectionate, and deeply involved in their local church. 3 times a week, she left the house for choir rehearsals, Tuesday and Thursday nights, and Sunday mornings. Ryan always admired that devotion. He thought it was beautiful that she found purpose and peace in her faith. He wasn't particularly religious himself, but he fully supported her, and he even felt proud when she sang during special services, her voice echoing through the church walls while Emma and Sophie, their 7-year-old twins, watched with wide, admiring eyes. Their routine was set in stone. Ryan left early for construction sites, managed teams, dealt with suppliers and clients, and usually got home around 7. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, Claire was already gone by the time he arrived, so he took care of dinner with the girls, helped them with homework, and put them to bed. Claire came back around 9:30, always with stories about rehearsal, the people in the choir, the songs they were preparing for Sunday. Ryan listened with genuine interest, happy to see her so fulfilled. 15 years of marriage. 15 years of trust, partnership, building something together. Ryan had never, not even in his worst nightmares, imagined anything could shake that foundation. He trusted Claire the same way he trusted the sun to rise every morning. It was as natural, as fundamental to his existence, that the thought of betrayal never even crossed his mind. That Thursday, Ryan was in a meeting with an important client discussing an expansion project for a shopping center. The meeting was scheduled to last until 8, but the client was so impressed with the proposal that he approved everything within the first hour. By 6:15, Ryan was walking out of the client's office in downtown Charlotte, surprised by how quickly things had gone and thinking he might get home earlier. The girls would be happy, and maybe he could catch the new episode of their favorite show before bed. He got in the car and turned on the GPS to avoid the heavy rush-hour traffic. The app suggested an alternate route through a quiet residential neighborhood he rarely drove through, promising to save him 15 minutes. He took it and started down the tree-lined streets, noticing the well-kept homes, the autumn decorations in the yards, kids playing on the sidewalks. It was a beautiful, peaceful neighborhood, the kind of place where nothing bad ever seemed to happen. It was when he passed a 2-story house with a white fence that something caught his attention in a way that made his stomach drop. He instinctively eased off the accelerator and slowed almost to a stop. There, in the open garage, was Claire's white SUV. Ryan knew that car better than anyone. He'd put the twin school decal on the back window 2 years ago, and the small dent on the right bumper was from a clumsy parking job at the supermarket. There was no doubt. It was his wife's car. His heart immediately started racing. He looked at the dashboard clock, 6:22. Claire should have been on her way to church by now. Rehearsal started at 7, and she always left home around 6:30 to get there early and help organize the sheet music. Why was her car parked inside the garage of a house he didn't recognize? A tightness gripped Ryan's chest, a growing discomfort he tried to rationalize. Maybe she was visiting someone from the choir? Someone sick who needed help? But then why was the car tucked inside the garage, like she didn't want to be seen? Why hadn't she mentioned stopping by anyone's house before rehearsal? He pulled over a few feet down the street, across from the house, where he had a clear view of the place but wasn't easily visible. His hands trembled slightly as he gripped the steering wheel. He knew his wife. He knew every gesture, every expression, every tone of her voice. And something about this situation was deeply wrong. He could feel it in his gut, a primal instinct screaming danger. He took a deep breath, picked up his phone, and dialed Claire. Each ring felt like an eternity. On the third ring, she answered, her voice sweet and calm as always. "Hi, honey. You done early today?" The normalcy of her voice, the lightness, it sounded so genuine he almost doubted himself. Almost. "Hey, sweetheart. Yeah, I'm done. Where are you right now?" There was a pause. Brief, almost imperceptible to anyone who didn't know Claire as well as he did. But he caught it. That fraction of a second of hesitation before she spoke. "I'm at church, at rehearsal. We started a little early today to work on a new song." "Why? Is something going on?" Ryan closed his eyes, feeling a wave of nausea. She was lying. The lie came out so natural, so smooth, that a chill ran down his spine. He looked again at the white SUV in the garage, the lights on in the upstairs window. "Nothing's wrong," he said, keeping his voice steady. "I finished early and thought I'd swing by quick. Can you come out for a minute? I'm right in front of the church." The silence on the other end was longer this time. Ryan could hear Claire's breathing change, faster, shallower. "Now? We're right in the middle of a new song and the director's explaining the harmonies. It'd be weird if I left." "It's fine," Ryan interrupted, each word landing like a stone. "I'll wait. I've got all the time in the world." Another silence. He could feel her panic through the line. "Ryan, what's going on? Are you okay? Are the girls okay?" "Everything's fine. I just want to see you for a minute." "Stay there, I'll wait." He hung up before she could say more, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might burst. He got out of the car with shaky legs and walked slowly down the sidewalk, positioning himself behind a large tree where he could see both the garage and the lit-up window upstairs. He didn't know exactly what he was doing, he was acting on pure instinct, but something inside him needed to see, needed to know for sure what was happening there. It took less than 5 minutes. Ryan saw the living room light upstairs suddenly turn on, then a woman's figure appear at the window. It was Claire, he'd recognize that silhouette anywhere. She was gesturing wildly, her body language clearly agitated, moving nervously as she held her phone. And then Ryan saw something that made his entire world stop spinning. A man appeared behind Claire. A man without a shirt, his bare torso visible even from a distance. He placed his hand on her shoulder, an intimate, comforting gesture, trying to calm her. Claire turned to him, said something, and he responded, running his hand through her hair in a way only someone very close would. Ryan felt his legs give out. He had to grab the tree trunk to keep from falling. His vision blurred for a moment, the world spinning around him as the reality he knew shattered into a million pieces. 15 years. 15 years of marriage, of trust, of love. And there was his wife, in another man's house, lying straight to his face about being at church. He didn't know how long he stood there, processing, trying to make his brain accept what his eyes were seeing. But then something inside him hardened. A cold, sharp determination took the place of the pain. He wasn't leaving. He wasn't pretending he hadn't seen it. He wasn't giving her a chance to make up more lies, to cover her tracks. He was going to confront her. Right now. Ryan walked back closer to the house, stopping right in front of the garage entrance, arms crossed over his chest. He could feel adrenaline coursing through his veins, every muscle in his body tense. Through the upstairs window, he saw Claire disappear, probably heading down the stairs. The hallway light came on, then the front door. The door opened and Claire rushed out, her purse slung over her shoulder, hair slightly messy, face flushed. She was adjusting her blouse as she walked toward the SUV, eyes fixed on the ground, clearly nervous. When she looked up and saw Ryan standing there, just a few feet away, she froze. Her face drained of color instantly. Her eyes widened in pure terror, her mouth opening in a silent, shocked "oh." Her purse slipped off her shoulder and hit the garage floor with a dull thud, but she didn't seem to notice. "Ryan," her voice came out as a choked whisper, almost inaudible. "Hey, sweetheart," Ryan said, his voice low but cutting like a blade. "Funny how the church changed addresses, huh? Or was I looking at the map wrong?" Claire opened and closed her mouth several times, like a fish out of water, trying to form words that refused to come. Tears began to well up in the corners of her eyes. "Ryan, I can explain." "You can explain," he repeated, stepping forward. "You're going to explain what you're doing here when you're supposed to be at church. You're going to explain why your car's parked in this garage. You're going to explain who the shirtless man was I saw upstairs putting his hand on you." Each question came louder than the last, the anger he'd been holding back starting to spill over. Claire stepped back, tears now streaming freely down her face. "Please, don't make a scene here, the neighbors." "The neighbors?" Ryan laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. "You're worried about the neighbors? You just destroyed our 15-year marriage, and you're worried about what the neighbors think?" At that moment, the front door opened again and the man appeared. He'd put on a t-shirt, but his feet were still bare. Ryan recognized him immediately, and the feeling of betrayal deepened even more. It was Kevin Patterson, 40, a divorced businessman who attended their church. Ryan had met him at a few social events, post-service lunches, community gatherings. They'd talked a few times about business and sports. Kevin had even warmly greeted Ryan at the last Christmas party, wishing the family well. "Ryan, man, look," Kevin started, raising his hands in a placating gesture, but his voice shook. "Don't call me man," Ryan cut in, stepping toward him. Kevin instinctively stepped back. "You're not my friend. Friends don't do this. Men of character don't do this." Ryan stopped a few inches from Kevin, looking him straight in the eyes. He could see the shame, the guilt, but also a defensive arrogance that made him want to punch that face. "How long?" Ryan asked, his voice dangerously low. Kevin looked at Claire, searching for some kind of cue, but she was frozen, crying silently. "Answer me!" Ryan shouted, making them both jump. 6 months, Kevin finally said, his voice hoarse. "Look, man. Ryan, it was an accident. We connected through the choir and—" "An accident," Ryan repeated, laughing again in that bitter way. "You stumbled and fell into bed together, is that it? 6 months of Tuesday and Thursday meetups, 6 months of lies, of betrayal, all an accident?" He turned to Claire, who was trembling from head to toe. "No choir rehearsals, did there ever really be?" Claire shook her head, unable to speak. "Answer with words." "No," she whispered. I still go to Sunday rehearsals, but Tuesday and Thursday You came here," Ryan finished, the reality crashing over him like an avalanche. "While I was at home with our daughters, making dinner, helping with homework, putting them to bed, you were here. Cheating. Lying." He ran his hand over his face, feeling his legs weaken again. The initial shock was giving way to a deep, visceral pain that felt like it was consuming everything inside him. "The girls," he said suddenly, looking at Claire with a mix of horror and rage. "You looked at our daughters every morning, made their breakfast, took them to school, knowing that at night you'd come here? How did you do that?" Claire sobbed, covering her face with her hands. "I didn't want to hurt anyone. I felt so alone, Ryan. You were always working, always tired, and Kevin was there, he listened, made me feel special and—" "No," Ryan interrupted, pointing at her. "Don't try to blame this on me. Don't try to make me feel guilty for your betrayal. If you were unhappy, if you felt alone, you should have talked to me. But no, you chose to lie, to deceive, to destroy our family. He turned back to Kevin. And you? Were you lonely too? Did you need another man's wife to feel special? Kevin lowered his eyes, silent. Ryan realized the man didn't feel true remorse, just embarrassment at being caught. Did you know I was present in her life? Ryan asked, taking another step forward. Did you know we had little girls? Or did you just pretend not to know so you could sleep better at night? Claire said you two had problems, Kevin muttered. That your marriage hadn't been good for years. Ryan looked at Claire in disbelief. I said that? Problems? Claire couldn't look at him. Answer me. I didn't know how to deal with my feelings, she finally said between sobs. I fell in love with him, Ryan. It wasn't planned. It just happened. The pain Ryan felt at those words was physical. He put a hand to his chest, as if he'd been stabbed. You fell in love, he repeated slowly. You fell in love while you were still my wife. While you slept in my bed every night. While I kissed you in the morning and told you I loved you. He shook his head, stepping back toward the SUV. I can't even look at you right now. Give me the keys. What? Claire asked, confused. The car keys. You're taking an Uber home. I'm taking your car. Ryan, please, can we talk at home? We can. Give me the keys right now, Claire, or I swear I'll call the police and make a scene that wakes up the whole neighborhood. With trembling hands, Claire pulled the keys from her purse and handed them over. Ryan got in the SUV, slammed the door, and sped off, the tires skidding slightly on the asphalt. He drove aimlessly for nearly an hour, the tears finally coming, all the anger and pain he'd held back bursting into ragged sobs. He had to pull over into an empty parking lot just to breathe. How was this happening? How could the woman he loved, the one he'd trusted completely, have done this to him? 6 months. 6 months of elaborate lies, deliberate betrayal, constant deception. When he finally managed to pull himself together, Ryan called his mom, who lived just a few blocks away, and asked her to stay with the girls for a few days. He didn't give details, just said it was an emergency. His mom, hearing the seriousness in his voice, agreed immediately. In the weeks that followed, the full truth came out in an even more devastating way. Ryan hired a private investigator who discovered Claire and Kevin hadn't been nearly as discreet as they thought. There were photos of them dining at restaurants in neighboring towns, records of motel check-ins, and even a few people in the church community who either knew or suspected the affair but hadn't had the courage to tell Ryan. The humiliation was crushing. Ryan had to face pitying glances on Sundays when he still took the girls to church, had to hear whispers when he walked into places, had to live with the feeling that everyone knew and was laughing behind his back. Claire begged for forgiveness over and over. She cried, knelt down, said she'd made the worst mistake of her life, that she'd do anything to win back his trust. But Ryan couldn't. Every time he looked at her, he saw the lie. He saw how easily she'd destroyed 15 years of history, how she'd put her selfish pleasure above their daughters, above the family they'd sworn to build together. The divorce proceedings started quickly. Ryan hired a well-known attorney experienced in adultery cases in North Carolina, one of the few states where infidelity still carries legal weight. With all the evidence Ryan had gathered, the lawyer built a strong case. Claire tried claiming the marriage had been deteriorating for years, but Ryan presented recent text messages where she'd said she loved him, photos of happy family vacations, and testimonies from close friends who confirmed the couple had seemed solid. Custody of the twins was the most delicate point. Ryan fought hard to keep the girls with him most of the time. He presented evidence that Claire had been negligent by putting her affair above her daughter's emotional well-being, that she'd systematically lied and used time meant for spiritual growth to betray her family. Emma and Sophie, though too young to fully understand what had happened, sensed the tension and began asking hard questions about why Mom didn't live with them anymore. In the end, Ryan won primary custody. The girls would live with him during the week and with Claire every other weekend and half the school holidays. The house they'd lived in was sold, assets divided, but Ryan's lawyer secured a more favorable split due to the proven adultery. The social fallout in the community was severe. When the full story came out, including the fact that Claire had used church rehearsals as an excuse to meet her lover, the reaction was shock and outrage. The pastor, a serious, upright man, called Claire in for a private meeting. Though he didn't reveal details publicly, she was removed from the choir. Kevin lost major business contracts with congregation members who were furious about his role in destroying a family. He ended up selling his house and moved to another state 6 months after the scandal, unable to handle the social ostracism. Claire had to change schools to avoid the judgmental stares of parents who'd learned about the case. Her relationship with the twins suffered greatly. Emma, always the more sensitive one, started having nightmares and anxiety attacks. Sophie became withdrawn and rebellious, especially during weekends with her mother. Both asked difficult questions Claire couldn't answer. Why did you do this to Dad? Why did you lie? Don't you love us? Ryan went through months of intensive therapy. Nights were the worst, when he was alone after putting the girls to bed and the reality of the situation crashed over him like a ton of bricks. He questioned everything about himself. Had he not been good enough? Had he failed as a husband? Had he missed signs? His therapist, a compassionate, experienced woman, patiently helped him understand that the betrayal wasn't his fault, that Claire had made conscious, deliberate choices, and nothing justified the way she destroyed trust and family. Slowly, with support from true friends, family, and a structured routine focused on his daughters and work, Ryan began rebuilding. He accepted that the marriage he'd known had been, in large part, an illusion, that the woman he loved had never really existed the way he'd imagined. It was a painful process of grieving something that had never been fully real. 1 year after that fateful October Thursday, Ryan was in a completely different place. He'd advanced his business, taking on bigger, more challenging projects that kept him mentally engaged. The twins were adjusting to the new reality, still struggling, but with the help of a child therapist, they were processing things better. Emma smiled more often, and Sophie began opening up again. Ryan started dating again, carefully and without rush. He met Amanda, a divorced architect who also had kids and understood perfectly the complexities of rebuilding life after betrayal. They weren't in a hurry, they were building something solid, based on honesty and mutual respect. Claire tried reaching out a few times, sending long messages begging for a chance to talk, to explain better, to try some kind of friendship for the girl's sake. Ryan politely but firmly refused. He'd set clear boundaries, communication only about the girl's needs, through a co-parenting app, nothing more. There was no room for friendship, nostalgia, second chances. That chapter was closed. The last update Ryan got about Claire came through the girls. Emma casually mentioned over dinner that Mom was living alone in a small apartment and working at a new school far from Charlotte. Sophie added that Mom seemed sad all the time, cried a lot, and that Uncle Kevin never showed up anymore. The relationship between Claire and Kevin didn't survive 3 months after the divorce. Without the thrill of secret betrayal, without the adrenaline of the forbidden, they realized they had nothing in common besides physical attraction and the destruction they'd caused together. Ryan didn't feel satisfaction hearing this, but he didn't feel pity either. He felt only a deep indifference, a complete detachment from the life that was no longer his. He'd chosen dignity, truth, and the protection of his daughters above all else. He'd chosen not to accept crumbs of respect, not to swallow lies, not to sacrifice his sanity for the illusion of a perfect family. That October afternoon, when he decided to take the GPS detour and saw the white SUV where it shouldn't have been, when he'd made that call and chosen to confront instead of pretend he hadn't seen anything, Ryan had made the hardest, most important decision of his life. The truth had hurt immensely, almost destroyed him. But the lie would have been worse. Living in ignorance, being repeatedly betrayed while believing he had a happy marriage, would have been a false, empty existence. 2 years later, looking back, Ryan knew he'd made the right choice. He'd survived the worst kind of betrayal, protected his daughters, rebuilt himself from the wreckage. He was stronger, more aware of his worth, more cautious but also more open to genuine connections. The scars were still there, probably always would be, but he'd learned to live with them, to use them as reminders of his strength and resilience. Emma and Sophie had a present, honest father who loved them unconditionally and had proven he'd do anything to protect them. And Ryan had the peace of knowing he'd acted with integrity, that he hadn't accepted being deceived, that he'd chosen truth, even when it was devastating. That October Thursday had changed everything, but it had also given him the chance to rebuild something real, something solid, something true. And that, in the end, was worth far more than the perfect illusion he'd lost. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.